Hi, I'm Sensei Allison from Code Ninja's Wellesley. This is the last video in our Computer Science Concept Kata series on arrays. For our design exercise today, we're going to be thinking about the card game Go Fish. With any card game, there are going to be two important vocabulary words to remember: suit and face value. The suit is which shape appears on the card: diamonds, clubs, hearts, or spades. If two cards have the same shape on their face, they're said to be in the same suit. The ace of diamonds and the three of diamonds are in the same suit. The three of hearts and the seven of hearts are in the same suit. But the two of clubs and the seven of spades are not in the same suit. In each suit, you have 13 different face values: ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, then jack, queen, king. If two cards represent the same number or are both aces, jacks, kings, or queens, they are said to have the same face value. The ace of diamonds and the ace of clubs have the same face value. The 10 of diamonds and the 10 of spades have the same face value. Now that we understand how a standard deck of cards works, let's quickly talk about the rules of Go Fish, a card game played with 2 or more people. Each player is dealt 5 random cards that they don't show to other players. The undealt cards are placed in a single face-down pile. All players take a turn in a round of play. In a turn, the player looks to see what face value cards they have. If the player has 4 of the same face value, they lay those 4 cards down on the table as a complete set. If the player has 1, 2, or 3 of a face value, they can ask one other player if they have any cards of that value. If the other player does have any cards of that face value, they must give them to the asking player. If the asking player actually gets cards from the other player, they may ask again for cards of any face value in their hand from any player. If the other player doesn't have any cards of that face value, the asking player must draw a random card from the pile of undealt cards, or Go Fish, and they may not ask again in that round. If a player runs out of cards, they draw 5 from the pile of undealt cards. If there are no undealt cards left, that player is out. The game is over when all 13 complete sets are on the table, and the player with the most complete set of cards is the winner. Let's open up our computer science toolbox to see what tools we have so far to try to design a Go Fish game. We have variables, conditionals, lots of kinds of operators, 3 kinds of loops, functions, and now arrays. We'll keep these tools in the back of our mind while considering the design of our Go Fish game. We know that our games should be structured around a central game loop, a set of checks and statements that the computer executes many times per second. So let's draw a pretend while loop to help us think about the flow of our program. We know that this is a multiplayer game, so think about what each player needs in order to play. Perhaps a player name, the cards in their hand, their completed face value sets. What will the player try to do when it's their turn? They'll try to ask another player if they have any cards of a certain face value, right? Should you check that the player already has at least 1 card of that face value in their hand? How do you decide if a set of face value cards is complete? How do you check if it's the next player's turn yet? One useful way to think about some of these problems is with variables. You don't need to struggle to figure out whose turn it is if you store a variable called active player, which has the name of the player whose turn it is. We've been thinking about games strictly in terms of what will be in the game loop, but is there anything that only happens before or after regular gameplay? I can think of some. Shuffling the deck and dealing each player their initial hand of 5 cards. How will you keep track of what cards each player has? What face value sets they've completed? How will you shuffle the deck of cards? How will you keep track of which cards have not been dealt yet? I'll give you a hint. All of these things can be done with arrays. Let's walk through how you might use arrays to shuffle the deck. I've initialized an array here with all 52 cards represented, but they're not shuffled at all. The ace of hearts is right next to the ace of spades, which is right next to the ace of clubs, which is right next to the ace of diamonds, and pretend the rest of the deck is here. Next, I'm going to make a second array, which will be empty. This will be the shuffled deck. Now I'll enter a while loop. I'll generate a random integer from 0 to 51. I wonder what size our unshuffled deck of cards is. 4 suits times 13 face values equals 52. So our unshuffled deck is 52 elements long and has indexes 0 through 51, just like the range of possible random numbers. Once we generate the random number, we check if there's a valid card identifier at that spot in the unshuffled deck. If there is, we push it to the shuffled deck and then replace the card with a nonsense value. We do this until all 52 cards have been shuffled into our deck. Notice that we used a property of the array its length to stop the loop, how we used random numbers to select random indexes in an unshuffled array, how we use nonsense values to our advantage. These are all really useful concepts for manipulating arrays in games you build. Try to integrate the other possible arrays we mentioned yourself, like arrays to track the undealt cards, completed sets, and each other's hand. Think about when you might need to iterate over all of the values in an array, and what you'll measure to halt the iteration, like array length. Thanks for watching and learning about arrays with me. Hope to see you soon.